Galen and Lori deserve this Stockman of the Year honor because of the impact that they've had in the state of Kansas, because of the impact that they've had around the nation, and because of their continued commitment to Kansas State University.
I think Galen and Lori are very deserving of the Stockman of the Year award because of the many things that they have done in the past. The work that they've done with their commercial bull customers is second to none. And I think nobody works harder than Galen. And I don't think anybody's more honest in what he does than Galen.
I don't know if there's two more deserving people for the Stockman Award.
When I finished my bachelor's degree here at K-State, I wanted to be the beef cattle herdsman. At that time, there was already a person there, so I went up and started running the research unit. And while I was running the research unit, Galen was one of the undergraduates that worked up there.
I got to know Galen back in 1980 when I was a veterinary student at Kansas State University, and got to work with him starting in '82 when I became an intern at Kansas State University Vet School.
I first met Galen and Lori Fink in 1989 when I went to work at the Kansas State University Purebred Beef Unit. Galen was the herdsman at the time, and no one else applied for the job, so I guess I ended up getting it. When there was a job to be done, the chores or feeding anything, you'd always flip a coin, or we'd always have pliers to cut the bales. You would flip the pliers to see who got to do which job. And the unique deal with Galen was the winner actually got to do the worst job, which being the snow and the rain on the back of the truck, pitching out the feed, throwing the hay. For the loser, would get to sit inside the truck. And little did I know at the time, but that was a life lesson that has stuck with me forever.
Galen ended up taking my job at the research facility. He stayed there a number of years and was really an outstanding herdsman there for him, was a real asset to the university, and did a lot of good things while he was there. I learned right off quickly that Galen was a very hard worker and a very smart individual.
Galen's willingness to walk away from purebred cattle barn at K-State with having no land, having a herd of cows, and knowing in his mind and his heart that he could make this work. And Lori tolerated that, which is an attribute to her, that she would believe in him enough to know that they could walk away from a good thing and make something much better. When we were attempting to move our part of our business that was in Texas, cross-country genetics, back to Kansas, one of the first people that I called was Galen Fink, and we started actually doing some embryo transfer for him out of the state of Texas before we moved back here. Galen and Lori had an interesting concept that we had not been exposed to, and that concept required that we take their embryos to commercial herds around the state for those commercial herds to raise the embryo transfer created calves for the Finks. We hadn't done that prior to that time in my career, and it really changed the way we looked at doing embryo transfer in the state of Kansas. And we expanded upon that with Galen and with other clients. And it really changed how we went about our business.
I remember finding out what Galen was doing about developing cooperative herds or breeder herds. I thought was a tremendous idea.
He had the ability to select genetics and market genetics in a relatively comfortable manner, but he was limited on how many resources he had to accomplish that. And he had enough foresight to realize that if he could incorporate commercial herds into this part of his business, he would increase the number of calves he had to market and really set him on a path to great success. I think the Finks have shown the cattle industry what can be done when you look outside of your own capabilities, look outside of your own resources, and that's what I really attribute part of their success and part of their what they've left with the industry is that ability to look outside themselves and incorporate other people into their business that allows them to grow. Everything that they've done has been from their own hard work and their innovation. And that may be the most unique thing about their program is that they've just done it. They've done it on their own with hard work, with intellect, and with willing to take risk.
The thing that impressed me most about Galen and Lori was the fact that they were very interested in helping their customers. He was one that was out visiting all of his bull customers and finding out what they liked and didn't like, and also what his genetics were doing. And I think that's where he was light years ahead of a lot of the commercial bull producers at that time. And to say how right it was, there's a tremendous bunch of breeders out there are now doing the same thing that Lori and Galen do, that they started before anybody else.
Galen and Lori have never backed down from work. The one thing I always admired and respected about both Galen and Lori was their work ethic. There was never, ever a job that was beneath Galen and or Lori. Galen would never ask anybody or Lori to do anything that they wouldn't be there right by your side doing as well.
He was always surrounded by young people, starting at the purebred unit. That might have been forced on him a little bit, but because he was surrounded by young people then, at that point in time, he continued to do that throughout the career that I watched him develop. He always wanted young people around. He wanted to teach them. He wanted to learn from them. And I think that's the true definition of a mentor.
About the time that I got old enough to show, I actually got one of my first Chevrolet show heifers from him, and they wouldn't allow me to write a check for her, kind of a pay it forward deal. But the deal was that when I got established cow herd, I had to pass that on to some other juniors, and I know I was one of very, very many people that had that same experience with him, and that's just a small snapshot of Galen and Lori's generosity to the youth programs in the state of Kansas and across America, really.
He's an innovator and all that, and that's great. But to me, their biggest asset, bar none, is what they have done for young people.
When Galen and Lori's daughter Megan was showing, I mean, they would have a huge string at all the shows. I mean, she'd have, anywhere from 5 to as many they could fit on a trailer at every show. But Galen and Lori were always the first ones to pitch in and help out, whether that was running the Junior National or the state show or just doing all the legwork, finding those donation dollars to make those kind of things run. They were really pivotal in making all that happen. When I got done with school, kind of had an opportunity to go work for those guys for about a year and a half. I just loved it. I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life yet at that point, and they gave me an opportunity to kind of see the whole spectrum of the seed stock industry, and obviously the daily work of getting cows bred and embryo transfer programs and all the production side in a real world setting. But then the customer visits and sales preparation and sales management, all that kind of stuff kind of come full circle in that time. He didn't necessarily throw me to the wolves, but they were both very, very good at giving me enough leash to hang myself if needed. So.
Galen and Lori both were never afraid to think outside the box, to try things, to do things that no one else was doing. There's no question Fink Genetics was built on a partnership, and that was between Galen and Lori. Without Lori, there is no chance that they would be as successful as they are today. Lori's the quiet one that does just as much work, probably more, than Galen, and on top of that has to put up with Galen, which is a whole other job in itself. She was so heavily involved, still is to this day, with all the industry events around. Lori has always kind of been the face of Fink Genetics. It's been really fun and interesting to watch Galen and Lori go from where they were and where they started to having Megan, watching Megan grow up, and now watching them with their granddaughter. The one thing that will make him stop in his tracks, whatever he's doing, is Whitley. His philosophy's always been the pendulum will swing both ways, and if you always stay in the center, you can catch it coming and going. And that has been proved to be so true over all these years, and is one of the reasons they've been so successful.
I would liken us to really young kids when we started, and we learned to do things that benefited both of us.
The thing I really respect about Galen is he started with a little bit of nothing and built just a tremendous operation from ground floor zero, with not much behind him.
So through starting with one cow in the backyard of the herdsman house on Kansas State University, from those beginnings, they started, it was just a lot of work, dedication, drive to get them to where they are today.
And I'll be forever grateful for all the opportunities that they've given me, taking just young farm kid from Marysville, Kansas, and let them go out and see the world.